In the world of fertility, there's this one idea that a lot of us just take for granted. One follicle means one egg. Simple, right? But is it actually true? Today, we're going to unpack the numbers and get into the really fascinating and sometimes surprising biology behind ovarian follicles and the precious cargo they're supposed to carry.
So let's just ask it straight out. Does every single follicle contain an egg? I mean, it seems like a simple yes or no question, but the answer is so much more complex than that. The truth is, whether or not you'll find an egg really depends on this incredible mix of biology, age, and even the type of medical procedure involved.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we're going to tackle that whole one follicle, one egg idea head on. Then, we'll dive into how age just completely changes the game. After that, we'll get into the hard data, the actual numbers. And finally, we'll see how all of this fits into the body's amazing natural system.
All right, let's kick things off with the basics. In theory, yeah, the relationship between a follicle and an egg seems super straightforward. But as you're about to see, what happens in a fertility clinic can be a whole different story from what Mother Nature intended.
So what exactly is a follicle? Well, the best way to think of it is like a tiny personal incubator inside the ovary. It's this little fluid-filled sac, and its entire job, its whole purpose, is to protect and nurture one single developing egg, which scientists call an oocyte. So by definition, it's supposed to have an egg in there.
And this is where things get really interesting. See, in a natural monthly cycle, your body is a master of efficiency. It usually picks one champion follicle to grow and release one perfect mature egg. That's it. But during fertility treatments, the whole game changes. The goal is to get multiple eggs. But just because we can see a follicle on an ultrasound, that's no guarantee we're actually going to find an egg inside.
So what is the single biggest factor that decides whether a follicle is empty or not? It's the one thing none of us can avoid: age. And honestly, the biological story of why it has such a huge impact is pretty powerful.
As time goes on, age really affects this process in three major ways. First, and this is the one most people know, both the quality and the total number of eggs go down. Second, the body is constantly getting rid of follicles through a natural process called atresia. And third, the risk of something called Empty Follicle Syndrome, where the follicles look great but are just empty, goes up. And to put that follicle depletion into perspective, just think about this. A woman is born with somewhere between 1 and 2 million follicles. By the time she's 37, that number has plummeted to around 25,000. It is a massive and yet totally natural biological countdown.
Okay, so what does all this biology actually mean in a clinic, in the real world? Let's look at the cold, hard numbers, the actual probability of retrieving an egg from a follicle broken down by age.
I mean, the numbers really do tell a clear story, don't they? For women under 35, there's a fantastic 80 to 90% chance of getting an egg from a mature follicle. But you can see how that probability drops with each age bracket. By the time a woman is over 40, it can literally be a coin flip, 50%, or maybe even lower.
And when you look at it like this as a chart, you can really see that drop. It's not some gentle, gradual slope, is it? It's more like a series of pretty significant steps down. This visual just makes it crystal clear. When it comes to the odds of finding an egg, age is hands down the most important factor. Okay, so with all of these clinical stats fresh in our minds, let's just take a step back and appreciate how the body handles all this on its own, with absolutely no medical intervention. When left to its own devices, the body is the ultimate quality control expert. Every month, a whole cohort of follicles starts to develop, but then a natural selection process kicks in, and only the single best, strongest one gets to become dominant and release its egg. What happens to the rest? They're simply reabsorbed by the body through atresia. The system isn't designed to save every follicle, it's designed to pick the absolute winner. And really, that's what it all comes down to. This whole relationship between follicles and eggs, it just highlights the incredible, mind-boggling complexity of human reproduction. It's a powerful reminder that behind a seemingly simple question, there's this breathtakingly intricate biological system constantly working against the clock.